Good afternoon. Welcome back. It's a Trigger, Rich Bontrager. We're 2 p.m. live, midway through the week. Hope you're having a good one. Busy, busy, busy. Always kind of chaotic sometimes around the Rock the Stage office, but having a good time here. I hope you are too. We talk a lot about podcasting. I interview podcasters. I talk to a lot of podcasters. I love interacting with the podcasting community. I do it for the National Speakers Association. I do it just for other leaders, influencers, and I just love podcasting and talk show hosts, specifically talk show host people that really know how to rock their stage, their interview personality, the flow of a show. It's great to hear what they're doing and why they're doing it. So today I thought I'd share a little bit about what I learned when I observe and watch other podcasters and talk show hosts. Uh, I love actually just putting on the headphones, laying down, listening to other stuff, or watching streaming content of other people. This is exploding. There's so many different ways to do the podcast media talk show streaming video content like I do. There's so many different ways to do it now, but the compelling part is what are they doing that's making it dynamic for them? What is drawing in the crowd for them? Why are people clicking, subscribing, following? And now, one of the cool things that I'm learning from people is people are bringing Patreon more and more into their podcast streaming content shows. Patreon's a great way to blend the universes of good content, making money, adding bonus content into everything you do. Lately, I've bumped into 2 or 3 shows which are very compelling, amazing interview people, and 2 of them aren't even professional interviewers. They're just people that love what they do, but they're linking it to the quality of what they do to Patreon. Patreon was made for creators, influencers, and also for people that needed fundraising for specific projects. It's now turned into much, much bigger. It becomes communities of themselves. When you have a Patreon community, it really helps you grow your brand, your show. But you have to make sure one of the tricks they're doing is on one particular show, which is more video driven, they save all the Patreon announcements for the end. In fact, one of them at the very end has a Patreon sponsored section. Stroke TV is back with us again. Great to have you here. Streaming content, video content on YouTube. Exactly, Aaron. Yes, indeed. But with Patreon, one of the things you can do is this show particularly highlights them at the end of the show. And they'll field questions from their Patreon people. One of the perks of they have 2 or 3 different levels. So just like you have a speaking program, a coaching program, you have different tiers of levels. Same thing with Patreon. Well, one of their levels will get you mentioned on the show. So at the end of the show credits on this video talk show, they're literally scrolling the people that are Patreons. Instead of the producer, the line writer, all the things we've seen on TV, they do a little bit of that, but then they scroll all their Patreons as a way to say thank you. Another way to say thank you is that you can submit a question, and if your name gets pulled out and they think it's a good question, you get mentioned live on the show, and they'll thank you for that. One of the shows I'm watching literally does, again, this is a creative, fun idea. They have a trivia contest. So it's the guests, 2 co-hosts, and it's the Shuttle Pod show. People from Star Trek, if you're following that, Connor Trinneer, and my mind just went a blank of his other name. Sorry about that. But they are actually doing this talk show and with different Star Trek celebrities, old shows, new shows, movie directors, everything. But at the end of this show, they stop and they play trivia with Star Trek. And they always play on behalf of some Patreon member on that particular show. So they'll say, tonight we're playing for Ted. And Ted is from Tennessee, whatever. And they'll play this round of trivia questions. And whoever wins, if it's the main host of the show, they win. Because the producer is a Star Trek geek to the nth degree. I think he's a great guy. I want to get him on my show myself. But if he wins, the Patreon member loses. The host of the show actually have to win and outguess their producer. If they win, they'll send them a gift. They'll send some sort of prize. But the running gag is they'll send them a car, and it's a little car. But they're finding creative ways to pull members into it raise money through Patreon because you subscribe. You send a monthly fee. It could be $5 monthly fee, a $10 monthly fee, but you start getting more and more of these Patreon members. You make money to help fund the show. And then again, always engage with your community. That's one of the interesting things on some of the shows I'm observing right now. They're not just engaging the audience, they're really making them a part of the show. How much are you bringing your people in and making them a part of the show? Every day here, you see comments from people. I'll swipe them in, bring them in, mention my name like I just did with Aaron. That's one of the techniques that you want to do to make it more interactive, to keep people participating. Now, what else am I learning from some of the podcast shows that I'm watching right now and listening to right now? It's less about how-tos on some of these podcast shows. There's a lot of how-to shows. YouTube blew up with how to fix your toilet, how to fix your car, how to fix this, how to fix that. A lot of these shows now are going into personal life stories of your favorite celebrity, personal life stories of inventors, authors that wrote great books, but their personal life story led them to write the book. And they're turning into more of, let's dig deep into you, not just the product, not just the service you're selling, but the podcast becoming a journey into the soul and the person. It's an interesting change now that they're realizing we've done all the other stuff, but people really want to get to know you. See, that's why we talk about it, Aaron. You don't know anything about Patreon? That's where we're helping you out. Patreon is a great way. You create your own landing pages, create your own funnels, link it in, and you build a community that helps you grow your brand. Many different industries use it. This is just one example of how you can use it through the podcasting, streaming, media content. But this idea of being able to have the casual conversation, it really is a cup of coffee and sitting down with someone and creating a safe environment. I've heard several shows. Mark Rosenbaum does a really great show, and he calls the show Inside of You. He played Lex Luthor on Smallville. If you remember that show, he now does this streaming show, Patreon members again, but he literally has created the environment of, I want to know what's really going inside of blank actor, blank director. Fascinating people, and they're willing to open up and tell stories that they've never told from the stage. They've never put out in an interview, and he's created this space of safety where people are willing to open up and lay it all in. It's been very, very interesting. There's been several actors that have said, I've never mentioned blank, but I think I can tell you because for some reason you make this fun and easy and feel safe. That's a talent. That's a gift of the host to create the environment where that's happening. But it is another trend that I'm seeing. More and more shows, instead of just being the 5-minute interview that you get on Ellen, you get on Oprah, these little short movie, it's all about the book, it's all about this. They're turning it into a longer piece, which is very interesting. More and more people are pressing in on short content, from Reels to TikTok to all this. What I'm seeing, though, there's another very strong podcast platform out there for long, in-depth, relationship-driven content. A lot of people were giving up on that, but right now there seems a real strong insurgence. So think about your audience. Think about who you're trying to communicate. What is it that you want to do with your show? Always go back. There's a part of you that plays into it, not just your clients, not just your target market, but you've got to love doing this. That's one of the things that I've seen in some podcast show recently. I can tell they're burnout. They're tired. They've been on forever, it seems like, but they really haven't. But they're realizing this is serious work. There's a craft. There's an art to it. Others are leaning back more and more and saying, hey, I'm just going to roll the tape. I'm going to see what we get here, and we're going to have a great time. Recently, we had that happen on Rock the Stage. How to Rock the Stage will be live again tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We recently had one of our shows. It was so in-depth. It was so rich. And Robin Christman and I just got into the flow, and we just kept going. We had to make a two-parter out of it for the sake of the audio podcast. But for those that streamed live last night, you got the full content. That's another thing that I'm seeing in the podcast industry more and more. Going back to Patreon, going back to some of the layered system, you have your main podcast, the one that you're going to produce for everyone to hear, your free subscription on Apple's and iTunes and things. A lot of people are making that an edited version of their podcast, of their interview show. They edit it down. They want it crisp. They want their commercial inserts. They want their outros really clean. Great. But that's only one way to put their show out. Another way they're putting their show out is we have the bonus content. We have the full play, unedited, raw interview with Gene Simmons from Kiss, whoever it is, right? So you have the one that's produced, but you have this bonus. That's one of the layers of Patreon or of creating your community. You give them something different, but it's a takeoff of what you have on the main podcast. And within your Apple, your iTunes, you put a little liner note in there saying, if you want to get the full content, you want to get the unabridged interview, you put the link in there, and then you have them go to your Patreon page, and other services are out there like Patreon. You click on that, and then you register for it. And as a member, depending on which level you pay for, you get the unabridged, unedited content. Now, sometimes it's a blast. You get to hear things that you'll never, ever hear anywhere else. So there's a lot of ways. No, Patreon is not really a video platform. It's a fundraising platform. But you can use it in conjunction with your video platform. So you have your podcast, you have your audio show, you have your community that you're trying to create, Aaron. And then the idea is you add Patreon as your subscription base. They literally, again, you have to figure out what prizes, what giveaways, what levels that you're going to put in. So it could be merchandise. It could be a book. It could be a private 101. I know that some of these podcast shows now are getting big enough where they're saying, we're going to have an exclusive monthly meeting at the top level. You get to meet with us exclusively, and it's worth paying for to get in this unique tribe. That might be the top tier. Tier number 2 might be that longer play, that longer content of the main show. And tier number 1 might be a free mug or a free product gift every month. But you make them what you want to make them, but you have people more committed to your show. So more and more, the shows are not just about the content. They're not just about putting out a podcast and showing your genius, as most of us talk about. It is important for business leaders, influencers to leverage podcasting and media so your brand will grow. But a lot of us are struggling with figuring out how to make money, how to grow that community. Where do they go? Do they go to your website? Do they go to your Facebook group? Or maybe they join your Patreon type group and you have incentives and packages and so forth. There's a lot of ways to do it. So what I'm learning about podcasting is there is no right or wrong format. People are getting more and more creative with their audio, video podcasts or streaming TV shows. There's so many different ways to do it right now, and it's great to see that the expansion. It'd be very easy to just get in a rut and do your show and never have this morph and grow into anything else. What I've learned from other podcast shows is be creative. Find your unique way to sustain it and grow it and make it unique to you. One more tip. If you do watch the Shuttle Pod show, you can find it on YouTube. One of the other things they've created is their own island. And their guests could go visit their island. It's a great, interesting, fascinating question they do every show. That's another thing they do with your podcast shows. Come up with your hook, your thing that you do every single show, and make that one of your marquee show run statements. It'll help draw people in. It'll help show your uniqueness and make your show unique and special and fun. And that's going to do it for The Trigger here today at 2 p.m. Tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I go live for How to Rock the Stage, streaming on many of the same platforms. 5 o'clock this afternoon, if you're part of the National Speakers Association, I'll be back live at 5 p.m. Eastern Time going behind the stage with the NSA. And by the way, since we're talking about all the podcasting, make sure you subscribe to Rock the Stage, the audio podcast. Grab that QR code, hit that there. Make sure you subscribe and join us. You'll get replays of the shows that we air live every Wednesday night streaming. And you'll also get back content, older shows that we're bringing in more and more to let you hear what you missed when we first launched How to Rock the Stage. And that's going to do it for today on the Trigger Rich Bontrager. Thanks for dropping in. We'll see you here at 2 p.m. Eastern Time